Welcome to the Original Gangsters podcast. I'm your host, Scott Burnstein, Quick Hitter Edition. We got more news to report up in the Great White North in Canada. Um, I wanted to talk about some really exclusive sourcing that I have that is able to paint a picture of the seeds that were planted and the foundation that was laid for the peace that was achieved between the Rizzuto mob and the Hells Angels back in December, ending their 14-month war. We exclusively reported it in Gangster Report, as well as that's our web magazine, Gangster Report, as well as Original Gangsters podcast. And we have some more news to report on things that led up to it. And then I also want to discuss, I have some more information on a couple of the murders that have happened after the peace treaty was agreed to. And people are kind of questioning what these murders have to do with the peace treaty, if anything. Matu Belanger in Mexico was killed right before Christmas. And then last week, a Hells Angel affiliate named Antoine de Marjorie Blaise was killed, and we'll get to that in a second. But the big news here is the creation of the union. That is a new regulatory body that represents the Rizzuto mob, the Hells Angels, as well as some other groups, but mainly the Rizzuto mob and the Hells Angels. Um, Representatives and associates of those groups sit on or are a part of this new body called the Union, and it was created in November, just a couple weeks before the December 11th peace treaty, and it's pretty critical from my reporting and my sourcing of how we got to the peace treaty and what's happening after. So the union is basically guys that are empowered by the Rizzutos, the Hells Angels, in some cases, uh, the West End gang, the Irish mob, some of the Arab power guys, and some of the street uh, uh, black street gangs, but mainly the Rizzutos and the Hells Angels started this group to monitor activities on the street and regulate them, make sure that the edicts from the top get carried out at the bottom, and they're speaking for the Hells Angels and the Rizzuto mob. And I think something like this would have gone a long way um, in what happened to start the whole war between the Hells Angels and the Rizzutos. And we're tracing it all the way back to 2019, the murder of a Hells Angel named Dirty Diaz, and he was a low ranking Hells Angel that had a lot of you know supporters that were more high ranking. But if the union had existed back then, they would have handled that, and it wouldn't have been um, left to you know the Rizzutos at that point to kind of take things into their own hands and deal with a situation that they thought they were a victim in, and that Dirty Diaz was stealing from them, and they didn't go through the proper channels, just handled it themselves. You know, right now, 5, 6 years later, if something like that happened, it would go to the union, and the union, I'm told, was the brainchild of the new Rizzuto mob underboss, Pietro Diadamo, aka Black Pete, who is right now the second in charge, right hand man to Leo Rizzuto, the Godfather. He dates one of Leo's sisters, and is a guy that went from a soldier to a skipper, and now he's in the administration. He's has replaced Stefano Solicito, Little Sauce, who had to step away in 2024 because of health issues as well as legal issues. But Diadamo comes from the Solicito um, faction, if you will. In the Rizzutos, he was a driver and a protege of Little Sauce's dad, Rocco Sollecito, the original Sauce Sollecito, who was assassinated back in 2016. And Pete D'Adamo, we're told, was integral in pushing for the peace conference with the Hells Angels and getting things copacetic and being able to uh, re-cobble together that long-standing relationship, that mutually beneficial relationship between 81 Nation and the Rizzutos. A lot of business was being sacrificed for egos, and Pete D'Adamo seems to have been the adult in the room, or the guy that had cooler heads prevailed, and he convinced everybody we need to get on the same page. Before that, he creates the union, and now I'm told that the union reports directly to Pete D'Adamo. And again, the union is there to make sure everything that's going down on the street on a day-to-day basis is to the liking and to the protocol set by the top echelon of the Hells Angels and the Rizzuto mob. Um, that brings us to the recent murders, and we had said before we wanted to be clear that there was some speculation that, especially this last murder of Marjorie Blaze, was somehow a unraveling of the peace agreement, or that it showed that there hadn't been a peace agreement, and that's just not true. Um, we're still getting details brought to us, but I want to correct some stuff that we reported in our last quick hitter. It looks like Antoine de Marjorie Blaze was not a member of a club. Um, I'm told that he was affiliated with the Full Metal Motorcycle Club as well as the Reapers Motorcycle Club. Some great reporting by the Dirty News, um, the best true crime blog in Canada right now, did a good deep dive on this. There's been a lot of different reports. First, there was reports that he was a Hell's Angel. Then there was reports that he was a Full Metal Motorcycle Club member. It looks like he's just affiliated to two Hell's Angels support clubs, the 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 um the Full Metal Motorcycle Club and the Reapers. Um, so I think this goes to the reporting that we said last time, where a piece has been made and everybody at the top is in lockstep with each other. But because of the proxy wars that were going on these last 2 years, where you had a lot of street gangs that had previously had nothing to do with the Rizzutos or the Hells Angels, um, linking with them in this war, kind of in some cases making their war, the war of the Rizzutos and the Hells Angels, beneficial to the street gangs at the lower level, because they could pick up scraps or pick up territory that was being disputed, um, and benefit themselves. That even though there's been this peace made at the top to untangle this knotted underworld landscape, isn't doesn't happen with you know the snap of a finger. This is something that um, is going to take a little time, and I think the Belanger murder in Mexico was probably a loose end, and he was another guy that was linked to Hell's Angels, but was not a Hell's Angel. And then with Marjorie DeBlaze now, um, this has nothing really to do with the Rizzutos and the Hells Angels. This has to do with much further down the pecking order, much further down the food chain. A guy like this and other people that are still trying to untangle um, that knot that had been created for 2 years. Unfortunately, there's going to be some bloodshed from that. And it's not going to affect the greater peace. But in this situation, you know, Marjorie DeBlaze or Marjorie Blaze was murdered. His his young son was in the car when he was murdered last week, and there's some rumors. We don't totally unconfirmed right now, but some rumors, and I know that Dirty News mentioned this, that it might have had to do with a beef related to Blood Family Mafia, who had its own war with the Hells Angels, kind of in tandem with the Rizzutos, or in tandem with the Rizzutos. That war has also come to a close, but rumors are that possibly DeMarjorie Blaze had issues with Blood Family Mafia. And it should also be pointed out that, you know, this is not this isn't a simple turn off the faucet, because it's so layered. And I think with, the lower tier guys, in some cases, they might not care, that there's been peace at the top. They got their own beefs. They want to settle their own scores. It's not going, they know it's not going to affect what's going on at the top, because they're too low down the totem pole for the people at the top to care. So, again, I just wanted to give some context and perspective on that. But the union, and I'm not sure if the union played any role in the whether it be the Belanger murder or the DeMarjorie Blaze murder, but I do know that the union has been created and then dispatched to the street to regulate. And it's like that song from the 90s, Regulators Mount Up, because that's what the union is. It has some similarities to the Wolf Pack. I asked some people, like, is this kind of like the Wolf Pack? Yeah, kind of, not exactly. But the union is now in effect, and is emboldened and empowered by the top guys in the Rizzuto mob and the Hells Angels. It's interesting to see, and we'll learn more about the influences from the other groups. I hear that the West End, the Irish mob, has more influence than other groups that are not Italian or Sicilian, I guess, or the Hells Angels. Um, I'm told that there's a, a man of Middle Eastern descent. I don't have enough info on him yet to give his real name. I know what his real name is, but I don't want to say it yet. And that he's kind of running point on behalf of Diadamo and the Rizzutos, which is interesting that it's not a Sicilian, it's an Arab. But that's neither here nor there. Now we'll know more about that in the coming weeks, and I'll report it. But it it this body, this group, um, is fully supported and created, and in some cases, I guess you could say, puppeted by the Rizzutos, mainly the Rizzutos and the Hells Angels. So, um, and that's where we are right now. Wanted to let everybody know um, that the union had been created, that the creation of the union laid the foundation for the peace treaty in December, and could be playing a role in some of these residual murders that have taken place. But I wanted to assure everybody that those murders, the Belanger murder and the Marjorie Blaze murder, will have no effect on disrupting the peace at the very top of the hill. So please check back at Original Gangsters podcast for all breaking news across North America when it comes to gangland activity. You got it, Jones. We got your fix. Um, and we love doing it. We love bringing you the latest, most elite, most exclusive breaking news from our sourcing that we're really proud of. And we love doing it. So keep on coming back. Check out the Patreon if you get a chance. A little bit more historical, a little bit more analytical. Doesn't get as much into the breaking news. That's called members only. And then, come back and we'll be here 24/7, uncovering the underworld one city, one region, one country at a time. I'm Scott Burnstein. I'm out.